Hey there guys, alright, today we are back with Geohistory, this time the Cold War. I still need to go back and watch the longer versions of World War I and World War II videos. I do mean to get to those eventually. And then just before we get into the video, remember to go check out the links down in my description box below, or go to my pinned comment in the comment section, where I have links to various things. I have linked to my Twitch channel, which is where I am currently streaming Ghost of Tsushima New Game Plus, and we will be getting to the DLC eventually. I'm just replaying it, wanting to experience the story again. It's been about a year. And also playing through Divinity Original Sin 2 over at twitch.tv/RyanPeaceLive. The next link that I say is pretty important is my gaming channel link. Trying to diversify like stuff that I do. I think it's probably better for, I guess, taking YouTube as a business. Diversify it, and yeah, I have a gaming channel. That's where I'm uploading the old streams of mine. Currently being uploaded is the Mass Effect 3 playthrough. Aside from that, let's go ahead, dive right in.
During the second half of the 20th century, the world's two major powers were engaged in a face-off without direct confrontation for almost 45 years.
It's a, you know, when it's put like that, where for 45 years the two greatest powers never really fought directly. It's amazing that it's just crazy.
Let's trace on a map the chain of events.
Because like even today though, like you have these instances of where, like a while ago, I think Russian mercenaries fought American troops. I remember, I think it was in Afghanistan a few months ago or something, or maybe even over a year. But yeah, you have instances where it's reported of some like Russian mercenaries and American troops fighting, and then it just doesn't go past that. It's weird.
That shaped the Cold War. At the end,
it's a historical anomaly, is how I'll say it, because if this happened, if these things happened anytime before World War I, it would have broken out to a full-scale conflict.
Of World War II, major European powers are weakened after more than 60 million deaths over 6 years of fighting. Two superpowers remain.
Oh my god, I like how they have the like super tiny city-states mapped out on the map. They don't have the ones in Italy though. Like I believe San Marino is somewhere in here. Unless San Marino doesn't exist yet. I think it does.
Remain in the world. The United States of America and the USSR, who fought together as allies to defeat Nazi.
Allies, yeah. Worked together for against a common enemy.
Germany
definitely weren't
and
allies,
the Empire
I think,
of
in
Japan.
the traditional sense.
The USSR, or the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, is a vast area covering 1/6 of the land surface of the planet. It is a federal state under a communist regime consisting of 15 republics and headed by a single party. The United States of America is a liberal democracy based on capitalism. It has a military edge, being the only power with nuclear weapons, and also boasts the world's strongest industry and economy. Both powers try to peddle their influence in Europe. The US, under its Marshall Plan, offers substantial loans to European countries to revive the economy and establish trade links. The USSR, for
Bribing countries to be friends with us. Yeah.
its part, wants to
Then again, Moscow threatens countries with their army.
protect its borders and set up pro-Soviet governments in liberated countries. Europe is found divided into two blocks and
I mean, yeah, I guess in comparison, I would probably go with communism over, you know, Germany. But that's the one say that's liberated.
separated by
More
what
like change of administration.
is called the Iron Curtain. In Germany, allies merged territories they control in violation of agreements signed with the Soviets. In response, the Soviet Union imposes a blockade on West Berlin, which is still under Allied control. An airlift is set up to bring supplies to the area.
Just brushing over the sheer, like, craziness that is the Berlin airlift. I love it.
Henceforth, both powers harbor a fear of the other. On both sides begins a witch hunt. In the United States, federal employees sympathetic to communist ideas are fired. Even Hollywood is used as a tool to produce anti-communist propaganda. In the USSR, any form of opposition is suppressed. Beyond ideology and clout, the two powers battle for influence in the fields of science, industry, space, sports, and military. The Soviet Union invests heavily in industry and arms, and in 1949 tests its first atomic bomb. The same year, the United States sets up NATO, a military alliance between countries of the Western Bloc.
I'm loving the music.
Throughout the Cold War, there would be many indirect confrontations between the two powers and their allies.
Oh my god, a video on the Cold War is actually going to talk about the Greek Civil War? This never fucking happens.
The first one takes place in Greece, where a rebel communist militia from the Second World War, supported by the Soviets and armed by Yugoslavia, enters into a civil war against a traditional monarchist party, supported and financed by Britain and then the United States. However, following tensions, the USSR breaks its alliance with Yugoslavia. As a result,
yes, Tito.
Greek communists lose vital support and are forced to lay down their arms. Greece then becomes part of the Western Bloc. In China, after 3 years of civil war, the communists prevail over the nationalists who retreat to Taiwan. The USSR wins an important ally in the region that would influence two wars in particular. The first was fighting alongside communist North Korea against South Korea, which was supported by a UN-led international force directed by the United States. After 3 years of fighting, a ceasefire leaves the Korean peninsula divided in two. China also intervenes in French Indochina, where it supports a rebel communist militia against France, which after struggling to regain control of its former colony, is forced to leave the region. Vietnam is divided in two at the 17th parallel, with communists in the north and nationalists in the south supported by the United States. This marks the beginning of the Vietnam War.
Ooh, here we go into the Suez Canal. Okay.
In response to NATO, the USSR organizes its own military alliance through the Warsaw Pact. The following year, France and Britain unite with Israel in a surprise war against Egypt to regain control of the Suez Canal. The United States and the USSR oppose this attack and quickly impose a ceasefire, marking the end of European dominance in the region to the benefit of the USSR. The Soviet Union, which has now caught up in military and industrial technology, installs hundreds of long-range missiles.
Okay, so yeah, this is an important thing, and I think I'm going to mention it though. Yes, this technologically they were behind. However, following the end of the war, the Russian army was an army of like veterans. They knew what the fuck they were doing. Really immediate post-World War II, Soviet army, I would say, is on, despite lacking in terms of technology, they don't have technological superiority, and definitely are not. Their overall technology is lacking compared to the West. However, they certainly make up for it with the, the amount and also the quality of their troops by the end. Post-World War II, immediate post-World War II. I don't think this would be the same in 1960. I think 1960 is when they probably started slacking a bit. It's just like how, the U.S. Because 1960s, the U.S. gets into some failed military operations. So it's far enough past World War II where both sides no longer have the military that they had immediately following World War II. But I just thought it's still good to mention the because obviously Moscow was technologically behind. It does not necessarily mean that they were still militarily behind, right? It makes sense up here.
Pointed at Western Europe. In response, the US points its missiles towards Soviet territories.
Elsewhere in the world.
Following disagreements, China breaks its alliance with the USSR as the country aims to distance itself and become a new world power. On the other hand, many countries break with the two main camps and choose to remain neutral by creating the NonAligned Movement. In Latin America, the United States plays its part to
imagine being so neutral you're not even in the Non-Aligned Pact. Looking at you, Ireland, Sweden, Austria, Swiss, rest of Africa.
ensure no room for communism, but the country fails to militarily overthrow the new communist government in Cuba. The USSR takes advantage of the American failure to diplomatically influence Cuba. Soldiers and Soviet military ships are sent to the island and missiles are installed and pointed at the US. Tensions build to a point where the marine forces of both sides get ready to face off against each other. The whole world holds its breath and many countries prepare for an eventual World War III. But after negotiations, the USSR agrees to withdraw and remove its military facilities if in return the US promises not to attack Cuba and remove its missiles in Europe. This de-escalates the situation.
I believe specifically they'll remove the missiles from Turkey. What the deal really was. I don't think they removed them from Germany.
The
or
United
France.
States, fearing a communist takeover of the South, organizes a military invasion with more than 500,000 soldiers. This decision antagonizes France, which prefers to find a peaceful solution. France decides to distance itself from the increasingly assertive United States and leaves NATO. In 1975, communists win the war, inflicting a heavy defeat for the United States, whose image is tarnished globally.
Yeah, Vietnam was really bad.
The USSR took this opportunity to revive its political influence in the world. On the one hand, it supports communist militias in Africa, which takes over power in newly independent countries. On the other hand, the country sends its army to Afghanistan in support of the communist regime fighting the Mujahideen, a group of Islamists supported and funded, among others, by the United States. The USSR also upgrades and replaces its missiles directed towards Europe with more precise ones. This marks the beginning of the Euro missile crisis, which threatens Europe and pushes the United States to install new missiles of its own. This sparks an arms race, with the USSR...
Notice how there weren't missiles in Turkey, right? That was the deal of Cuba.
...investing up to 14% of its gross national product on the cause. The Soviet Union begins to run out of money. At the height of the crisis, it tries to implement economic reforms, but to no avail. The two global powers eventually meet to begin disarmament negotiations. The USSR withdraws from Afghanistan and stops funding communist militias in Africa. It attempts to open up to reforms and boost transparency, but it is already too late for the Soviets, who can no longer quell multiple revolts. The Berlin Wall is destroyed and Germany is reunited. In 1991, the USSR implodes and the 15 republics become independent states, marking the end of the Cold War.
Okay. You know, I think this was well made. A bit fast towards the end there with those last 30 years of the Cold War, from Vietnam to the dissolution, right word, yeah, of the USSR. I think that came by. It's pretty fast, but I'm not too opposed against it. I think it was they still covered all the right information throughout the video. Cold War's a lot to talk about. You can't really, do an in-depth conversation about it, especially in like 7 minutes. It's something that I spent hours upon hours talking about. But yeah, this was still a really good video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.